sometimes following Jesus is, for a lack of better word, boring.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I think there's a beauty to it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm a pretty...
It's not failure. You're not doing anything wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. Welcome to Tacos Al Pastor, Season 2, Episode 5, where you come for the tacos, stay for the conversation. Our guest today is Pastor Reverend Izzy Mendez, the pastor at ACC Downtown here in San Antonio. Izzy, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, I heard there was tacos, so I would not turn that down.
It's the only way I can get people to join us, but it's a good hook. It's a good hook. Yeah, it's working. That's right. All right, we have tacos today from, for the first time, a repeat taco restaurant or taco place. Con Huevos Tacos, you're a fan of it?
Phenomenal place, one of my favorites in town.
Excellent. So we have deshebrada and carne guisada on flour. What you going for?
Ooh, I'm going to go with deshebrada.
All right. Guest choice. All right. So we got the carne guisada. It's not, it's juicy, but it's not like running all over the place. No. So that's all right.
Let me see. See, the trick is you kind of do this little flip right here.
Oh, man.
Ooh.
The voice of experience right there. Wisdom. I love carne guisada. It's so good. It's so messy, but it's just hard to beat.
Amazing.
Yeah.
My wife's not going to watch this. She'd be judging me hardcore right now.
Well, good. Hopefully we don't hope other people don't watch, but we hope she doesn't watch for your sake.
Exactly.
So, Izzy, tell us a little bit about ACC Downtown. You started the church, correct?
Yeah.
Or part of the launch team?
Yeah, part of the launch team. So, kind of my background is collegiate ministry and all that kind of stuff. But in 2020, which is a year that was pretty chill for most people, one of my friends and I, we've been praying about this for a while, about planting a church. And so kind of the idea was that I would come on staff with our sending church, Alamo Community Church on the Northwest Side. Phenomenal church, great people.
Yeah.
But we would jump on staff and then be sent. So we started with a team of about 25, moved to downtown San Antonio, and I've been going for officially 2 years as of January, second week in January. So
where do y'all meet downtown?
So we meet at the historic Herman Sons Ballroom.
Oh, really?
It's more known for the Rothskeller Bar.
Okay. All right.
So Rothskeller Bar is on the first floor, second floor is a bowling alley, third floor is a ballroom. And so we tell people, you can come to the bar on Friday, bowl on Saturday, come to church on Sunday, all in the same spot.
There you go. Just keep moving on
Absolutely.
up, right?
Absolutely. It's just a different floor each time. So
man, that's wonderful. And so is it a lot of some of the folk with the new condos and things, the revitalization of downtown, kind of reaching that population?
It's been really sweet. Yeah. You know, one of the things that we wanted to do was be a church that's in the community, involved in the life of the community. Yeah. And so we have apartment complexes on either side, and we see people walking to church on Sundays. You know, I lived, when we moved here, in a little studio apartment nearby. I would walk to church on Sunday, walk to the bar on Friday every now and then, and we actually hosted trivia night for the bar.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, you have a sound system, you have you have personality. Just give a preacher a microphone. We'll figure out what to do with it. And so we hosted trivia night.
That's what we're doing today, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're seeing a lot of people from the community walking to church on Sunday, people that live in the nearby neighborhoods or driving. Some of them are driving golf carts. And so it's just a really beautiful community that God is building.
That's amazing, man. And it's great to see how God is blessing it and blessing your leadership, and your giftedness is widely recognized. And I appreciate it. It's been fun for me as a newer pastor in town to use this as an opportunity to get to know better some of our other pastors. And San Antonio is blessed with really a kind of ridiculous abundance of gifted pastors and wonderful churches. And fun to see the cooperation that is coming of that and will come of that in the days ahead. Yeah. But on this season of Tacos Al Pastor, we've been kind of having an episode for each week of the Lenten journey, not necessarily on themes of each week of Lent, but more just as we're all in our church and beyond striving to follow Jesus in this time of Lent, and take on practices and address challenges to following Jesus. Having pastors and friends come in to visit about that with us. What you and I talked about is what we may discuss today is really challenges that come up with our faith. You know, when struggles are real, when tragedy strikes, or just when things are mundane and boring. And so much of the life of following Jesus is mundane. You pray and lightning doesn't, you don't have inspiration, or you're reading scripture, for the 48th day in a row, and maybe nothing new comes that day, or you have a dark night of the soul. And so, I just want to, as a pastor, how would you, someone that's going maybe through a mundane season, for any number of ways, how might you encourage that person to persevere in that season?
Yeah, it's a great question. In so much of life and ministry and the discipleship journey is mundane.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, for right or wrong reasons, as evangelicals, we've kind of pushed experience, right? Experience driven, like we call our Sunday gatherings worship experiences.
Yeah.
But what happens when you don't have that experience?
Yeah.
I think to understand how I'd encourage people to say, this is normal.
Yeah.
Right? That sometimes following Jesus is, for lack of a better word, boring.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I think there's a beauty to it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm a pretty...
It's not failure. You're not doing anything wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. I tend to say I'm a pretty chill guy.
Yeah.
My wife might disagree, depending on who's right or wrong on where we're going for dinner. But so much of life and discipleship to Jesus is very, 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 very boring. And it's a good thing. I think where we get it wrong is we worry that nothing is happening, right? Like I don't feel with fill in the blank, or I'm not experiencing fill in the blank. But it's much like a garden or plant. Like that doesn't mean nothing's happening.
Yeah.
That as we're walking with Jesus over a period of time, that there's things under the surface, right? That things are being watered and it's getting sunlight. Our journeys with Jesus are flourishing first underneath in the roots.
Yeah.
And hopefully the prayer is that would spring forth some abundance and growth. But that's boring at first. It's kind of boring to just water and watch nothing happen.
It's that winter growth when the roots are growing, the system's growing, but you don't see that, on the tree or on the vine or whatever it is.
Exactly. And so encouraging folks, and even in our own church, like so much of this, if it feels boring, that's okay.
Yeah.
If it feels like nothing's happening, that's okay.
Yeah.
But we're trusting that over time that God is doing something in the midst of that. And so that's my encouragement to people. Like, if it feels mundane, that's okay.
Yeah.
There's a joy in that. And I think sometimes on this side of pastoral ministry, I wish it were a little more boring and mundane instead of getting phone calls, at 3 a.m. or whatever that might be.
Right. Yeah.
But there's a beauty to the mundane that I think if we just kind of gloss over it for experiential things, we lose sight of what God is doing in the boring, in the mundane.
So do you think there is... I love all of that. And, with like youth group culture that a lot of us grew up in, evangelical world, chasing the mountaintop experience. And more than that, evangelical culture of revivalism and big events, big things, and chasing that mountaintop, which, man, I'm all for mountaintops.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jesus had them, I love them. But we can't live there. That's Transfiguration teaches us, right? We're not really meant to live there. We live, to use our language today, the mundane. Does the mundane offer opportunities for growth that the mountaintop doesn't?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. I'm kind of the thinker in this regard, where mountaintop experiences are great but can't be sustained. Yeah. But there's a beauty to the day-to-day life of walking with Jesus, of following Jesus, and John Mark Comer language, apprenticing under our rabbi. There's a beauty to that, and you can equate this to a lot of different things. I'm recently married about a year and a half.
Oh,
we're expecting our first baby in June. Yeah,
exciting.
Yeah. And I remember when we first started dating, Sarah and I, we would go on dates, and they were, at least for me as a poor church planter, extravagant. You would go to the nice restaurant. We would spend a little more money. And those
Taco Palenque, not Taco Cabana,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
I'm with you.
We're moving on up.
I know how to go nice.
Exactly. My man's bougie. But it was kind of those things, right? Yeah. On this side of marriage, it's sweeter than it was because we've had a lot of mundane moments that has grown our love together. We were going to Battalion for dinner and Maverick, and all these are great places in town that I highly recommend. You might see one of the Spurs players at one of those. But now, we had an incredible date night on Monday. And it was on our patio. We ordered a pizza. Yeah. We kind of just sat down. I put on, a record and we listened to music. And part of what made that moment so sweet was the little moments between Monday and when we first started dating, when we're having arguments and we're getting to know each other a little bit better. Yeah. We're having, moments of difficulty, but we're sharing in love together. Yeah. So there's beauty in those moments that don't really happen in the mountaintop experiences.
And that's what makes a marriage, right? Like not the wedding ceremony.
Exactly.
It's all those, and that's what makes the spiritual life.
Exactly.
And man, just even having a baby, thinking about, managing household, you're about to experience a whole other level of both joy and mundane nature of things. I mean, caring for kids is really boring. You got to do diapers, and there's a great book called Quotidian Mysteries by Kathleen Norris, where she is a homemaker who was a pastor, writing about she's washing dishes and laundry and cleaning house, and how she sought to find Jesus in like the mundane everyday life, and how wonderful that can be, but boring. And I think a lot of that when we're a little further down on the kid journey of 14-year-old where I'm just like his taxi all week long.
You are Uber, my brother.
I mean, it really is. But no, Ubers get paid.
You're like, this is costing me money.
Their guest talks to them. I'm not at all. And so, but there's such, how do you follow Jesus in that? How do you, whatever life is offering you at your season of life, visited some folks in, senior living facilities this week. That's a whole other level or different type of mundane, but unique opportunities to follow Jesus regularly during that. But,
and I think it's important to learn to love those moments. Yeah. And really approach it with a sense of gratitude. Yeah. Of like, man, I'm thankful for the mundane. I'm thankful for all these moments that led to our date night on the patio. And the same thing in our journeys with Jesus. I'm grateful for the times of silence and for lack of better words, sometimes the dark night of the soul that causes me really to press into Jesus and to learn to abide in his love. That's where I think the real growth happens. The really deep discipleship to Jesus takes place in the mundane, at least in my opinion. That's where I've experienced, where I came from and this is not a knock on any denomination, but I came from a very, very hyper-charismatic background that really emphasized experience. And if there weren't tears shed every service or anything like that, then something was up. Yeah. And now I think about my own journey in discipleship to Jesus, and so much of the slowness, the light burn and the easy yoke is a much more joyful place to be. Yeah. And really learning to abide in those moments where I'm like, okay, there's nothing happening, but something's happening. Yeah. And I'm grateful for that.
And I think there's powerful witness to persevering in Jesus following through mundane life. Absolutely. That people are watching, the Spirit is working around us, and just simple lives lived consistently that look like Jesus, smell like Jesus, sound like Jesus. Yeah. There's power that the Spirit is at work there that we may not always feel or know or ever recognize, that you're trusting in, right? That is work. The Spirit of God is at work in and around us, and honestly kind of trusting us to persevere through everyday life and see it with that vision.
Absolutely.
That's kind of fun to take into a mundane life of like, I don't know. You never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Here. And there's a beauty to that. One of the things, so our church is primarily young folks. Yeah. Right? I tell the people all the time, we have like 300 people in our church. Yeah. My parents are the oldest people in our church, and my mom's in her 50s, my dad's in his 60s.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's a lot of young life and experiential people that are chasing high mountaintop experiences all the time and all these kinds of things. Yeah. For me, what I need in my life is older wisdom. Yeah. And so I meet actually with an elder from First Presbyterian Church, a dear friend of mine now that's in his 70s, and was an entrepreneur that went, ministry and in his retirement has really given his life to that. And it's funny. I love sitting with him. We meet every other week, and I'm telling him the things that are going on in my life, and he just laughs at me. Yeah. He's like, come on, man. God's got it. And it's just, he's saying this with a smile on his face, with somebody that has walked with Jesus longer than I've been alive. Yeah. And there's a lot of the mundane, in his life that I've seen. He's been through difficult moments and tragedy and all these kinds of things. But there's a stillness and a steadiness and that's been cultivated over time. That's beauty. It's beauty.
Man, I hadn't thought about this until you told that story. But, as I'm thinking about those I consider wise or what wisdom looks like to me, it looks very mundane. A lot of the wisest people I trust in, they don't get real high. They don't get real low. They get high and low, right? But they're steady throughout, and they can see through some of the feelings of a moment or a season to see beyond to what God is doing. And anyway, that wisdom may be cultivated in the mundane. That's a thought I didn't think before this. That's interesting.
It's the same thing, kind of Eugene Peterson's long obedience in the same direction. It's just steadily obeying Jesus, delighting in his presence, just being still before God.
Yeah.
I think those are beauties or things of beauty that we often dismiss because it doesn't seem fun.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't seem cool or exciting. But there's true beauty to it.
Yeah. Well, the overall theme of this is struggle and challenge in following Jesus. And I think struggling through the mundane and persevering is something maybe we don't talk about enough. That's valuable. We also experience sin, right? We also experience failure. We also experience tragedy or just any number of struggles from the relatively minor to the really significant that impede, challenge, our walk with Jesus. I'm trying to remember how I phrased that question, but particularly let's just say like on the struggle side of that, what is your encouragement on persevering through struggles of various stripe?
Yeah, I think I'm encouraged for in looking at the life of Jesus. Sunday school answer. Jesus is the answer.
It's a good answer.
It's a good answer, but truthfully, I was reading through the Gospels and, it's Lent season. So we're preparing our minds as pastors are already going to Good Friday, Palm Sunday, and Resurrection Sunday. And we're excited about that. But you look at the life of Jesus submitting to the will of the Father, who's enduring difficulty to the point of, if it be at all possible, remove this cup from me. But we see that Jesus endures until the end. And for me, it's that kind of mindset of looking to Jesus who is enduring. And that's not the only difficulty he endured. I mean, Jesus endured difficulty of losing a friend, and weeping over those moments.
Yeah.
It's one of the Sunday school verses that the kids memorize, like Jesus wept. John 11:35. I know it in Spanish. Jesus lloró. It's like I don't know any other language, but that's a reality of Jesus persevering even in ministry after losing a loved one, like to the point of weeping. I'm encouraged at the life of Jesus, what Jesus goes on to do. It's an encouragement to me to continue to persevere. And Jesus had those moments, of walking with people, a betrayal from a disciple. I mean, he had Peter deny him to his face. Yeah. And yet Jesus comes back and meets him with love, and he says, hey, upon you, Peter, I will build my church. And so it's a reminder and encouragement to me to look to Jesus in my discipleship to him, that whatever happens, tragedy or loss or hurt or betrayal, I'm to emulate the life of Jesus, and that gives me great encouragement. And I want to encourage people to look to Jesus in these moments of hey, this is what it looks like to persevere. Yeah. This is what it looks like to embrace calling and submission to the will of the Father. It's a beautiful thing to do.
Yeah, and that is to say, right, that Jesus doesn't abandon us in those moments.
Absolutely not.
And if it is possible for Jesus to be more present, I don't know if that's theologically possible, but I know we feel Jesus more present or less present in our lives. I think fairly typically that, at least in my life, and I think in doing funerals and hospital visits, right, so many people do experience Jesus more intimately in that, but there's got to be some openness to that, to not shut down and see struggle or sickness or whatever, death itself, as failure or punishment.
Correct.
But that God can be with us in that. And but there's some sneaky theology that gets in there. I don't know where it always comes in, but we all kind of want to believe, I think that we're being punished sometime, or fear maybe that we're being punished when we have a mental health problem or when someone is any number of different things. But to say, no, this is bad. I don't want this. I don't really have a fully satisfying answer into why, although theologically I can get there.
Yeah.
But there may be opportunity to be close to Jesus and for Jesus to be close to you, that is healing in the midst of real difficulty.
Absolutely. And I would encourage anybody that's listening to lean into that.
Yeah.
If there's frustration, pray the frustration.
Yeah.
Just if there's anger, pray that anger. And we see this happen over and over, even in the Psalms.
Yeah.
I was listening to Father Ronald Rolheiser at a Lutheran church a couple weeks ago, and he was just talking about prayer, and he's written incredible works on prayer. But he's just like, prayer is lifting heart and mind to God. And so if it's anger, frustration, difficulty, leave that at His feet.
Yeah.
There's no wrong way to pray.
Yeah.
And so just learning to give that over to Him, and not view it as oh, God is angry at me or punishing me for something, but just to say, God, this is yours. I need your help. I need you to walk me through the difficulty.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, like there are difficulties in following Jesus where, there's times where I've made it a point, and my wife is pregnant, to never hear me complain. She's never going to hear me complain, but God definitely has. As I get into my red F-150, I turn up the music. Sometimes I drive a little too fast. I say some things that I'm not proud of, that I'm like, my Lord, forgive me. But lifting that up to Him and trusting that He's going to meet me there. That's the reality.
Well, and how amazing that the Bible has the longest book, right? Psalm with the most chapters anyway, of that so much of it is the complaints I would be embarrassed to voice out in front of other people. And yet it's codified in Scripture for all time that it's not only okay, God wants us to talk with that level of intimacy and openness, and welcomes it and can handle it and loves us still like that. The fact that Psalms exist and got passed down is kind of amazing, really.
It's beautiful.
That it wasn't like, oh, we got to hide that under the rug, man, that was too much. No, it's not. Nothing we bring to God can be too much. And He can handle it. So we're roughly halfway through the Lenten journey, somewhere when we're filming this anyway. And I don't know, maybe I'm the exception to this, but I've made my Lenten commitments to go back to a practice of prayer journaling and trying to fast one day a week. And have failed at both of those a couple different, multiple times. And have had deep experiences with those. So I think most of us are well acquainted with our frailty in the Lenten commitments we have made, that our will only goes so far. How would you encourage for any of our spiritual practices that we're trying to follow, when we slip up, when we don't keep our commitment, when we've given up Dr. Pepper and then at 10 o'clock at night, our sugar headache hits us and we just chug Dr. Pepper in the fridge with no one looking, how would you encourage someone? And perhaps are there an ability to grow in Christ through failure that otherwise we wouldn't have?
Yeah, I think failure is a great opportunity to learn. There's, in my mind, there's, not really failure if you're learning, especially in the disciplines of fasting and in the Lenten season. It's a journey and it's an invitation. So it's one of those things where it's an invitation really to grow closer to God. And so you're still growing closer to God even in failure.
Yeah.
Because in the moment of failure, at least in the Lenten season especially, it's the reminder of our humanity. That this side of glory, I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I may not go fully in on the commitment that I made on this side of heaven.
Yeah.
But there's a striving to be like Jesus, a striving to proximity and closeness. And so failure is an opportunity to lean into that closeness and nearness to Jesus, who was the only perfect one, who kept all of his commitments, that went to the cross on our behalf. And so failure is an opportunity really to get back up and try it again with God's grace and say, Lord, here I am. I drank that Dr. Pepper. You're a Truett guy, so it might have been a Dr. Pepper float.
Yeah, no, I do love them. Dr. Pepper wasn't my one. That was just hypothetically,
Well, I know Dean Still was in the building, and so he might be going to town with those Dr. Pepper floats.
But I think there will be Dr. Pepper floats at Truett on San Antonio this afternoon, actually. Yeah.
But it's an invitation to try again. And that's all of the spiritual journey is an invitation to try.
Yeah.
an invitation to be near Jesus,
Yeah.
to pray, whether that's 5 minutes, whether that's 5 hours, 5 days.
Yeah.
It's an invitation to proximity, to the presence of God. And so if I fail in that, because I have failed in my Lenten season and journey, we're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And it ends up being like a New Year's resolution. We're like, well, that was
we
out
treat
week,
it that way sometimes,
week
you know?
1, I was already, all right, where's
Yeah.
the food that I said I would give up? And it's an invitation to draw near, to try again.
Yeah.
Though we might fall and fail, there's an opportunity today or tomorrow or the next to strive after being with Jesus and becoming like him and doing what he did. And in the words of John Mark Comer, and practicing the way, there's a beauty to that I think that failure really highlights our humanity, but also points us more to Jesus.
Yeah. Man, that's so well said. And you use the word grace well, that if we don't come down too hard on ourselves immediately, we find that in our slip-ups and failure, we're met with grace and forgiveness, not condemnation. And again, those are those secret fears we hold on to that so often come with inside our own souls to our brains, or however that works exactly, not from God. And that there's encouragement. So if you are struggling in your Lenten commitments like Izzy and I have,
exactly,
and also experience some deeply meaningful times in those commitments as well, persevere. That there's grace and forgiveness there, and which allows us to get back up. And there's also nothing quite like renewing a commitment that we've slipped up on and we've received grace and forgiveness. I wasn't able to fast last week, but did Monday. And there was something even more deeply meaningful, to renew that and to know that I didn't have to do it harder or better or anything else, but there was joy in renewing that. And so, friends, man, I hope you hear us say there is no condemnation for those in Christ Jesus, whether you are struggling, whether life is mundane for you right now, whatever stage of life you are in. Man, the grace of Jesus is here for you and is calling you, beckoning for you to persevere as you are able, with friends, hopefully in community and with friends. And as we approach cross and tomb, there's no greater news for the world than the death and resurrection of Jesus and the continual, unending, unlimited supply of love and grace that is offered to us this time of year. That is encouragement to all of us. Izzy, thank you for joining us, man.
Thank you.
We so appreciate your wisdom for your ministry here in the city. And hopefully my prayer would be we get to do this together for many years to come as God sees fit. Friends, thank you for joining us today. We'd love for you to subscribe to our channel, like our videos on our podcast. If you have recommendations for some of the great place and tacos in town that we could use, leave it in the comments, send us a note. We'd love to know it. Izzy, if you had one other taco recommendation for us, being a man about town, what's a taco place we should try?
Okay. Con Huevos is great. I will say that Naco, have y'all had Naco yet?
Naco. I don't think we've had Naco.
Naco is also featured on
NACO?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's 2 locations, one on Grayson and one on Nacogdoches near Theory Coffee.
Okay.
Phenomenal tacos. Also was on Netflix Taco Chronicles.
Right.
So
Naco, we're coming for you.
It's great.
All right. Izzy, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me.
Man, the carne asada was good. I'm going to continue this one.